Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the February 18th meeting of the Half Moon Bay City Council. Glad to see everybody here. We have some exciting events this evening, and we're going to start with a roll call.
Good evening, council members. Councilmember Penrose is out ill this evening. Councilmember Nagengast?
Here.
Councilmember Johnson?
Here.
Vice Mayor Ruddick?
Here.
And Mayor Brownstone?
Here.
We have 4 present this evening.
Thank you. I would like to start with a Pledge of Allegiance. I would like to move for an approval of the agenda.
So move.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All those against? Okay. Approved. So we're going to start with proclamations and presentations. And as some of you may notice, we have an incredible group of young people here tonight with their parents. And first, I want to give a huge congratulations to our very own Half Moon Bay 10 and under boys American Youth Soccer Organization team. They've accomplished some amazing things this season. We're here to recognize that tonight. This team clinched their division, won their area tournament, won their regional tournament, and now we'll move on to the state championship tournament in Southern California on March 15th. This is absolutely wonderful. Let's give them a big round of applause for all they've done. So, is there a representative or one of the coaches who can maybe just go to the podium and tell us a little about how this was all accomplished and what a journey it's been?
Yes, first of all, thank you so much for doing this. It really means a lot. So great group of kids. It's a AYSO team. You know, what's amazing about it, it's not like it's a tournament team where you kind of stack the teams with your best players. It's a random draw of players. And so Half Moon Bay teams have played in the tournaments, but no teams even won the first regional tournament. We were the first Half Moon Bay team to ever do that. So obviously the first Half Moon Bay team to win for all of Northern California. So we'll be the first team ever to go down there to LA. So it really means a lot. I think it's a great group of kids. All of them are super competitive. It's just, we got super lucky with getting a good group of kids that all work hard, put in the time. And so, yeah, it really means a lot to be honored tonight. And I think we're going to have each one of the kids come up. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Coach. And also thank you to all the parents. Having been a soccer dad in my time, I know and work with soccer moms, soccer dads, and I realize what a commitment it is by parents. And it doesn't happen without all their encouragement and support and coming to the games. So thank you for being there for all your kids and making this a successful team. So we would like to recognize each member of the team, and we're going to do that by calling out each name and invite you up and receive your certificate, and then we'll take a group photo with our entire city council. Thanks, Colleen.
All right, so like I said, if I have forgotten anyone's names, let me know immediately and we'll get you a certificate right away. This includes the coaches as well, I believe. So first up, we have Sean Riley. Not here. All right, David Seaton. Yeah. Colette Seaton. Ricardo Orozco? Yeah. Adriel Acosta? Oh, hi. Eli Riley? Not here. Bodie Dixon? Bodie. Brooks Fletcher? Carter Lamascus. Nice medal. Mateo Seaton. Forrest Baumgartner. Not here. Really love it, guys. Thank you. Bryson Onu. And Marco Martinez. All right, so we're going to take a photo. If the council wants to head over here, we'll take a photo with the group.
We will next have a presentation from one of my favorite organizations, the San Mateo County Mosquito and Vector Control District Update.
Favorite organization?
Let me tell you, I've dealt with mosquitoes, and you folks show up, so I constantly sing your praises, and thank
Good.
you.
Thank
and I
you.
think we'll be having, yes, you'll definitely be having some work this spring, I could feel. I see a lot of standing water around, so thank you for everything you do. And in case the public doesn't know, if you have a problem with insects, varmints, you call the county mosquito and vector control district, and they will have somebody over in no time and do an
Smile.
assessment. Very responsive. And I used to live in San Carlos, and it was amazing how quickly folks come from the mosquito abatement districts, and they're gone. So thank you.
Good evening. My name is Katie Martin, for those of you who I don't know, which is this end of the council table. I know Debbie. I am your representative to the San Mateo Mosquito and Vector Control Board. I'm the vice president this year. I've been the president. I've been there for, we're trying to figure it out. I think it's 11 or 12 years. And through the pandemic and all that stuff. With me is Rachel Curtis Robles. She is our Public Health, Education, and Outreach Officer, the longest title I've ever heard. Things are going well at the district. Everything is pretty straightened around from when I got there. Not that I did everything. We're kind of in our slow time on the other side, but Rachel tells me that on this side, it's our busy time because of what you were concerned about, was the standing water. And our service guy comes out pretty much daily during this time and sprays where it needs to be sprayed and takes care of that mosquito problem. I want to report to you that the district has continued to excel in the California Special District Association leadership. For the 6th year in a row, we have attained a certificate of transparency, a certificate of distinguished special district, and in our financial reporting, I did not look up I did look it up. We've achieved the Certificate of Excellence in Financing Reporting for government from the Government Financial Officers Association of the United States and Canada for its comprehensive annual financial report for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2024. And we are fully financed in our retirement program now, which means we're doing really good. We have a new building. It's not so new anymore. It's like 3 years, but it's taking a long time to get. Our headquarters are in Burlingame, and we're having to work with the Burlingame City Council and Planning Department and those folks to get it right. The building that we purchased needs a retrofit, but it looks as though we're going to be able to start construction this year. We're going to use it as a warehouse for our cars and a lot of the equipment that's necessary for this function. Okay. Anybody have any questions about that? Otherwise, I'm going to turn it over to Rachel. She has a little presentation she would like to give you.
Any questions from council at this point?
I have one question, because I think you guys did it, and you guys saved the day at our house, and I want to say thank you, but we had these weird, they were like yellow jackets that were under the ground, and I think it's kind of common in Half Moon Bay, and we were told from a neighbor to give you guys a call. So I don't think a lot of people, I didn't know about it, and this is before on council, but I've been here since '89. So I think that should be a little bit more broadcasted. It's not just mosquitoes that you guys do, it was this hornet's nest that we had. So if you guys could do that, it'd be great if you're going to allude to that. But I just want to say thank you, because you guys took care of the situation. I was mowing the lawn, and all of a sudden these things came out of the ground and got me. So you guys, my neighbor goes, you can call these guys, they'll take care of it, and you guys did. So I want to say thank you.
That is Rachel's job.
Okay.
And we do find that the most common way that people find out about us is from a neighbor or a friend, and so we definitely want to encourage everyone to tell all their neighbors and friends. We do have a few slides here tonight. I'm going to present who we are. We are an independent special district. We're funded by property taxes and special benefit assessments from throughout the county. We're a relatively small district. We have about 24 full-time staff and a number of seasonal staff. As Katie mentioned, we are located in Burlingame, but we travel throughout the entire county. And our technicians are usually by zone. So we have a technician who covers coast side, who comes out Monday through Friday to help with any needs and do mosquito control along the coast. Next slide. Our work is based on integrated pest management. We use a variety of techniques aside from pesticide to try to control pest problems. And I'm going to just briefly go through all of our services so that those of us who are here tonight can be aware of those services, and please spread the word. I just do want to point out that when somebody calls for service, there's no additional charge. That's already covered by the tax dollars. Next slide. So I, first of all, want to point out that you can play an important role in reducing mosquitoes around your home by dumping and draining standing water, particularly water that's there for 1 or more weeks. And keep in mind that even a bottle cap of water is enough water to breed mosquitoes. So that's the kind of thing you can do in your backyard. What we're doing when we come to the coast side is looking for big sources of water. Maybe seasonal rain results in what we call an impound, or a big puddle or a small pond of standing water somewhere. And so our technicians would focus on those, or sort of more natural areas, where in cases where mosquitoes could fly from that source and bite people along the coast. Next slide. So we do want people to report biting mosquitoes. This is really important for us because we can't be everywhere at all times. And so when people report mosquitoes to us, that means we can zone in a little bit more on where we need to be looking for the standing water and treating that standing water or eliminating that standing water. Next slide. West Nile virus comes up every year. The disease risk is higher in the summer months, those warmer months when mosquitoes can reproduce more quickly. So our staff are always doing things all throughout the county, but one thing we would like the public to know is to report dead birds. It's a little confusing right now because we know bird flu is going through as well, but there's a statewide hotline that you can call, and those staff will help redirect you, and if appropriate, our staff will be called out to pick up that dead bird and test it for West Nile virus. Next slide. We have mosquito fish. I know this is one of our most popular services on the coast. Mosquito fish are little fish that are really good at eating baby mosquitoes. We can put them in unmaintained swimming pools, maybe not many swimming pools on the coast, but we can also put them in non-natural sources. So think of horse troughs, watering troughs, decorative fountains, little fish ponds people have on their properties, and that can help us reduce the amount of chemical pesticide we need to put into the environment. Next slide. We offer insect and tick identification. So if you find a bug on you, if you think there's a bug biting you, we can help you figure out how to collect it. Our staff can identify it and give you advice on how to stop being bitten. So we are experts of all the bugs that bother humans, I say. There's the County Department of Ag helps with bugs that bother plants and crops, but we help with bugs that bother people. Next slide. Oh, we can even pick it up from your house if you collect it. You don't want to drive over to Burlingame to drop it off, you can put in a service request, and our technician will pick it up from your house. We do rodent inspections, this particularly during the cooler times of year when rodents are looking for a warmer place to stay during the winter, cold, rainy months. We can come do a property inspection to see where they're getting in, what attractants you might have at your property, and give a custom report of how to mitigate that and how to reduce the chance of rodents getting in your home, or for you to do it yourself. Next slide. And as the council member mentioned, we do yellow jacket control. So yellow jackets are these little yellow stripy insects that look kind of like bees, but some people call them the bees in the ground because the yellow jackets tend to nest in the ground, the one species that's really aggressive. We do a fair amount of outreach about yellow jackets on the coast. I know we've worked with Hatch Elementary and that neighborhood to try to reduce the amount of yellow jacket incidents happening on the playground and during lunchtime, so you can always give us a call. Our staff will come out usually the next business day, or if you call early enough, sometimes that same day, to treat and or remove that nest. Next slide. And then there's me. I do all of our public education and outreach, so I do a lot of school programs, scout programs, basically any group that could benefit from learning about some of our services or all of our services. I can show up and give a chat. Next slide. I do want to highlight a program we've been running the past several months, which is our tick bite prevention education program. So this was a long time building, but it's a little kit that has a lot of information about ticks and how to avoid tick bites and how to properly remove ticks. We ran this program throughout the county, and we had over 1,300 people from across the county sign up, and just under 10% of those people who signed up were from Half Moon Bay. So we're really glad to see this resource being received well by residents of Half Moon Bay. And within the kit was a little magnet that talks about our services, so that hopefully more of your friends and neighbors over here have us on their refrigerator for when something pops up and can refer you. And we also have them in Spanish now too, those kits. Next slide. So we're always happy to answer questions. I can take questions now, or if at any point you want to request a service, you can give us a call or visit us online.
I love everything you're doing and I appreciate it, but can you expand it to gophers?
Gophers. Gophers are tricky. You can always call and request a service. We will come and tell you about gophers and look at the property. Unfortunately, it seems like the gopher solution is a lot of trapping of gophers or pulling up your entire turf, laying down metal mesh, and then putting your turf back down. Not a lot of great gopher options, sorry. And I do also just want to thank Katie for her many years of service on our board. She's been an invaluable member of our board, especially her involvement in the grand jury that sort of, I'm hearing, brought her into our board. And then she served as president and vice president in various very important roles, and always very calmly and with a lot of experience, which I think we really appreciate.
So Katie's also on LAFCO. I
Yes,
found out
also
recently.
on LAFCO.
Yes, that's great. She's very busy. And she lives in Kenyatta Cove. And she lives in Kenyatta Cove. Yes, she's a local resident. So really grateful for your work on West Nile virus, but now we're sort of faced with bird flu potential. We've already had a stray cat had to be euthanized because of bird flu. And, you know, a lot of it is in birds. And when people find dead birds, where's the first place they should go? Should it be to you? Is there another hotline for bird flu? What do you do when you don't know why the bird is dead?
That's a great question. And so what we would encourage is call the hotline. At this time of year, the hotline is a warm line. You'll record a message and they'll give you a call back. But during the summer, it's a hotline. You call, and as long as it's business hours, somebody will answer. That hotline is managed, and the warm line in the winter is managed at the state level from a lot of different departments. And so not only mosquito control and vector control, but also the ones who are in charge of fish and wildlife and diseases that are among wild birds. And so what happens is when you call the number, they will ask you sort of some questions about what kind of bird it is, how recently dead it looks, and some other questions to help you move. They themselves are gonna move you through the algorithm of, does that bird seem more likely to be a West Nile virus potential death, or is it possibly a bird flu death? And so either way, that hotline is the best number to call.
And which hotline are you talking about? The one for your district?
It's, it's this one. So it's 1-877 West Nile virus bird. But honestly, if you Google California report dead bird, this website should pop up, and you can do it online or you can do it by calling.
So would you say that it's probably not a good idea to feed wild birds?
And in California, it's against the law to feed wildlife. So we sometimes like to gently remind people that that is the law. Feeding the wildlife can be detrimental to the wildlife health because they're congregating in an area, more likely to pass transmissions to each other. They're more likely to become reliant on that feeding and not able to forage for themselves if that feeding suddenly stops for whatever reason. So we as a district generally align with the state law, which is to discourage feeding wildlife.
Great, thank you so much. Appreciate all you do. Thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
I have someone raising their hand. I'm not sure if they're asking a question for her or not. Just letting you know. I don't know. I just want to let you know.
Kimberly Williams, you have your hand up. Did you have a question for our folks from the Mosquito Abatement District?
I do have a couple of questions, but I wasn't sure if you were allowing public questions.
We'll take your question.
Thank you. I have just two questions. One is, I really appreciate the tick education, and I wondered if you ever partner with county parks, GGNRA, or state parks on tick education in the community.
Yes, we absolutely do. So I've been to Half Moon Bay State Beach Park. I do, actually just last week and the week before, I do education for all the San Mateo County parks rangers and field staff and docents, and we also do tick training safety for a lot of the friends of parks, so friends of Edgewood, friends of Hodder. Anytime somebody, I actually just did a tick training earlier today with grassroots ecology, and I'll do one tomorrow at Phi Loli. Anytime that you want a group to be educated about ticks and how to avoid tick bites, just let me know, and I'm more than happy. I bring all the resources. We have a pretty fun and engaging time with lots of questions and back and forth and an activity, so you can learn what repellents are best to use. So I would be happy to come to your group.
Oh, that's great. And then the other question is a little more complicated. I'm wondering how you ensure that the pesticide use doesn't contaminate, in stormwater runoff to the ocean.
That's a great question too. We're definitely also very concerned about our environmental impact. Sorry, where should I be looking at this point? Like just okay. That's a great question. We're very concerned also about, we had to do an environmental impact report that allows us and disallows us from using certain pesticides in certain situations. So a lot of our staff are trained and certified with the California Department of Public Health about when and where different pesticides are allowed to be used. And like I mentioned earlier, we use the IPM method, integrated pest management, so we're only using pesticides as a last resort. We are also very aware of storm drain issues throughout the county and where the storm drains go. We do some work in storm drains, but it's very seasonal, and it's with a pesticide that is not long lasting, because we don't want what we're putting in the storm drains to wind up in the ocean or on the other side of the bayside. I would also be happy to, we're always happy to answer questions too if you want to see our EIR, our environmental impact report, or have questions about specific pesticides. That would be something I would definitely encourage you. You can call our main line and ask, I have some questions about pesticides, and we would be happy to answer those.
That's great, thank you. And just for clarity, this is Kimberly Williams, and I'm asking these questions as an individual tonight. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kimberly. Hey, moving on. Thank you both for coming tonight, by the way. We're going to get a report out from Midcoast Community Council update. Thank you.
Hi, thanks for having me over again. I'm Scott from the Midcoast Community Council, and I have 3 quick updates for you, all associated with water. So as you know, there's a project, Caltrans has a project on Highway 1 that's going to eliminate the parking from Capistrano to Cortez on the east side of 1, so the northbound lane, so there'll be no parking there. And in conjunction with the Burnham Strip project, there's going to be no parking for Surfers Beach. The concern is that people that have their habit is to go to Surfers Beach for surfing or going down to the beach their parking will be up in El Granada. Now, the harbor has a project to build a parking lot near the Burnham Strip, and there may be parking there, but it's farther away than what people are typically used to. So if you're interested in that, the harbor has a meeting tomorrow, and I think it's number 4 on their discussion agenda. They're going to talk about the new parking that's going to be in the Burnham Strip. The second one is our next meeting is going to be all about stormwater. So with the help of the community and the members of the council, we have developed a stormwater report that compiles evidence of stormwater damage and runoff problems in the Mid-Coast. Also, the county is developing a draft ordinance for stormwater management. And our next meeting on February 26th, it's going to be all about that. So if you're interested in stormwater in the Mid-Coast, please attend our next meeting. Now, so back to the harbor. Our first meeting in March, which is on March 12th, will be concerning the harbor district redevelopment plan. The things that people are going to be most interested is the building that contains the Maverick Surf Shop, Catch Joanne, and Pelagic Fish Market is going to be remodeled. So those businesses, I think those businesses will be displaced during that period of remodeling. So again, if you're interested, on March 12th, our meeting, we'll talk about the plan for the redevelopment of the harbor district. And that's my update for you guys. Thanks.
Great. Any questions for Scott from council?
Thanks for having me.
Thanks again. Good seeing you, Scott. Okay. Mayor's announcements of community activities and community service. I don't think I have any for today. Report out from recent closed session meetings.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, Community. The Council did meet in closed session at 6 p.m. to discuss one item, conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation, 2 potential cases, nothing to report out. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. And John, are you covering city manager update?
No city manager updates tonight.
No manager update. Great. Okay. So we are now going to begin our public forum. Before we start, during public forum, people can bring up any topic they want, and they get 3 minutes. We do not, during public forum, talk about any items that are on the agenda. So for items that are on the agenda, for each item, we will have time we'll ask for public comment, and people could speak to those items then. I bring that up now because we have 2 speakers on the CSFA funding, so I'm just telling you ahead of time, Caitlin Vreeberg and Spandan Chakrabarti. So again, you can make your comments when we hit those agenda items later, okay? So our first speaker, and the way it works, we time you for 3 minutes. You'll hear 2 tones. First tone means you have 30 seconds left. And the second tone, that's it. We cut you off. So 30-second warning. Think about wrapping up, then you'll have 30 more seconds. So our first speaker is Brad Johnson. And Brad, we have distributed the letter that you wanted us to have, just so you know we all have it.
Hello again. Not very good with this microphone. I have my ongoing deal up at the library with the public safety. The lady was walking around with a knife. And as you can see by this note, when a little bit of history, when I showed Annie, the director, the video of the lady carrying around the knife, she called the police on me. At no point in the letter you're there did she mention that she called the police on me. So my name is Brad Johnson. I'm working on a story. I'm a veteran called Killing a Veteran. It's just kind of a euphemism for it. However, Annie knows this, and I'm working on a story, and I would talk to people, and I would show them the picture of the person with the knife and say, how do you feel about this? Well, apparently I don't have any Second Amendment protections because she kicked me out, told me I couldn't do this, and even when I was outside talking to people on the sidewalk, apparently her powers also extend out there. So I'm going to continue to do this. And as you can see, she's threatened to call law enforcement on again. And I'm like, if I have to have a legal meeting with her, if you look in the paper, then I should be provided an attorney. So I'm just trying to give you guys the heads up, and I assume the city attorney is listening to this, and I don't think you can tell me not to be able to ask people questions. If somebody doesn't want to talk to me, they say, hey, I don't want to talk to you. And I go about my business and go talk to somebody else. But this is what's going on, and I feel it's illegal. Gosh darn it. In addition, Annie has had a lady called Beatrix. I was working on a little speaker. They have a worker space up there. And she had Beatrix use her personal phone to videotape me while I worked on my speaker. This is illegal. You cannot have a public thing, have a public employee use their private equipment to record people. And why was she recording me anyway? So you may want to talk to Annie. Thank you, guys. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Brad. Our next speaker is Joaquin Jimenez.
Good evening, Mayor Brownstone, council members, city staff. My name is Joaquin Jimenez, and I am very, very concerned. Even if you actually have thought about, racism, sexism, and prejudice being a thing of the past, well, we are far from the truth. It's happening here in our county. It is happening. Measure A is an attack on our community. It's an attack on our sheriff, who was elected by the people. This could be just an example of what a dictatorship is. Removing the power from the people to vote. This is what this is. Measure A is not about questioning the leadership of our Sheriff Christina Corpus. It's not about that, because she's a great leader. She has the experience. She's proven that. She has hired a lot of deputies that represent our community, people of color, the community that was not represented before. New innovative ideas of community policing, better services, better programs for deputies, for their mental health. She has gone against bringing taser guns and pepper spray into our jails. She's been present in our community. We know that. We've seen her. Many of us have seen her. So Measure A is a testament that prejudice, racism, and sexism still exist in our community. This is a message for young ladies who one day like to be a leader. What do you think they're gonna, how they're gonna feel? That the first Latina sheriff to be elected by the people, don't forget that, was removed, was trying to be removed by our county supervisors. See, they're focused on a system that's only to protect the privileged and the rich. They want to protect the money. Christina is for the people. She was elected by the people. I'm against Measure A, who's a step forward to destroying our community and to removing our power to vote. I'm not willing to give up my power to vote. She's a great leader, and I respect her. She's been attacked on her personal life. It's not a question about her leadership. Say no to Measure A. Thank you.
Thank you, Joaquin. Our next speaker is Katie Martin.
I'm here about a simple thing, really. I live in Kenyatta Cove and have for the last 21 years. And it's like taking your life in your hands every time you make a left turn into the park. And it's because of the traffic that is coming on Miramontes Point Road from the beach down by the Ritz. I know that there is a new sign, newish sign, that says through traffic. I should explain, if you don't know what the intersection is, have you all been there so you know what that intersection is on Miramontes Point Road on Kenyatta Cove? Okay. There's a new sign that says through traffic. This is eastbound traffic on Miramontes. Through traffic does not stop, or something like that. That does not explain what the problem is. The problem is that people stopping or not at that stop sign see cars coming and go. and people try to get into the park and often don't quite make it. We have accidents there on a pretty regular basis. I think if it was labeled something like left turn traffic does not stop, or, which I have advocated for a long time, put a stop sign for westbound traffic for the park. Make the residents of the park stop before they go. Because most of the people who use that road are going all the way to the Ritz or to the beach, and they don't really understand the intersection. So if you could have the county or the city engineer take a look at it, it'd be very appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Katie, for bringing that to our attention. Our next speaker is Brad Steenweed.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, everyone.
So we can hear you.
Good evening, everyone. As the 6 o'clock meeting was a closed meeting, and because I do not know what transpired at that meeting, I just thought I'd spend a couple of minutes going over the letter that I sent to each of you regarding the civil case next week brought by.
Hey, Brad, sorry to say that, but can you just get a little closer or bring the mic up? Just want to make sure. Want to make sure folks at home.
Hold it here.
That's great. Then people at home can hear you also. Thank you.
The civil case brought against the city by Mr. Vidovich, which is next week. I believe there was a closed meeting about that earlier today. That may have been what Catherine was referring to. Because it was a closed meeting, I just wanted to reiterate that in the factual evidence that they brought forward, they said the PUD, the Stolovsky-Gonzalez PUD, there are 2 homes that were built and he is being stopped from building on the same PUD. The fact is that neither of the homes that are built are within 300 feet of the dunes. That lot is within 300 feet of the dunes. The city, the Planning Commission, had every right to turn that down. That was discussed at the Planning Commission meetings. I don't believe it was discussed when the appeal happened, when it was discussed here with the City Council. But that property is 200 feet from the dunes, well within the 300 feet. The dunes start where the work's being done for the fallout from the coastal path there. So I'm hoping that the city is going to continue to say no to Mr. Vidovich and his desire to overturn what the city has already concluded. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. I don't think there's any more speakers that I can see here, so that's it. Okay. Public forum is now closed. We will move on to the consent calendar. Is anyone pulling any items from the consent calendar? Okay. Would someone like to make a motion approving the consent calendar?
I move that we approve the consent calendar. Item 1A, waive reading of resolutions and ordinances. Item 1B, warrants for the month of January 2025. Item 1B, primary grant agreement template for San Mateo County Transportation Authority measures A and W. And that's it. Yeah.
A second, please. Can we get a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone against? Motion passed. We'll now move on to resolutions and staff reports. And we'll begin with item 3A, financial report for the quarter ended on December 31st, 2024. And I want to say at the front end here, this is an interim report. So this isn't the final report that includes year-end projections. Do I have that right? Just want to be sure. So if people are looking out for that, that's not happening tonight. This is just a interim quarterly report. Thanks.
The light doesn't work on that one.
Oh, okay. Is this working? Oh, okay. All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. Today we are presenting the financial report for the second quarter, which ended in December. And as the mayor mentioned, even though we're at the midpoint of the fiscal year, this report focuses on the past performance and upcoming mid-year review, which is scheduled for next council meeting, March 4th, has more detailed analysis and includes more forward-looking projections. With that, starting with revenues, this slide compares our major revenue sources, our top three. Starting with TOT, we budgeted 8.6. We've received about 40% of that, or 3.4. And on the far right side of that is a benchmark. So we're at 40, and the benchmark is about 46%. So as of right now, is showing that we might be underperforming at this revenue stream. You're going to see on the next slide when we talk more about TOT that the last 2 months were encouraging, but it's still looking like, as of right now, that our trending is we're not going to fully make that 8.6 number. Property taxes, a bit better here, budgeted 3.8, received about 1.7. This is slightly ahead of expectations. Base property taxes grow marginally year over year. We built that in. What we didn't anticipate was a little bit better revenues as far as property transfer tax. So when the homeowner sells their home, there's a little bit of tax on that. So that's accounting for we're overperforming a little bit there. Sales and use taxes, we budgeted 3.2. We received about 1 million. This category is also underperforming. This is underperforming for a mixture of two reasons. One is, of course, tourism, which you see in the TRT, but also kind of the broader economic factors. For us, for Half Moon Bay, two sectors in particular: transportation, buying and selling of cars and gasoline, and then also the construction sectors. Other revenues, we budgeted about 5.3. We've received about 2.1. These timing of these revenues make it comparison kind of difficult, but this is trending as anticipated. We're doing a little bit better in a lot of different areas as far as community development fees, parking, interest, performing better than expected, and feel pretty well that we're going to hit that. Overall, total revenues stand about at 8 million. Property taxes and other revenues are on track, but TOT and sales taxes are underperforming and may require an adjustment at mid-year. It is important to note before we move on that sales and use taxes does not include any money for Measure R. Measure R is a 0.5% increase. It's effective April 1st of 2025, and we are anticipating the first monies for that to come in June or in the summer. So we've opted to budget in those monies for next fiscal year. So this chart displays the last 6 months of our TOT revenues. The green columns are this year. The gray is for the year prior. As you can see, the first 4 months have been either underperforming or stagnant. The last 2 months, October and November, have been promising, hitting more than what we than the year prior. We had budgeted 8.6 for this year, but when we made that number, we didn't know how last year was going to end. And last year we saw a dip in the very tail end of the year, so in May, June, which didn't get built into our budget number. So that's the reason why currently trend is suggesting that we're going to end somewhere around 8.1, 8.4. But we're hoping to have another TOT number before mid-year that can give us a little bit more guidance. On the expenditure side, we are in good position. Spending is at 26% of budget, which is lower than usual, mostly due to public safety. Public safety this year was a bit lagging because of the sheriff contract. But you can see with all the other operational departments, we're under 50%, which is generally how we hope to be at this time of year. This slide shows our projected reserves and fund balances as estimated for this coming June. With the current budget, our reserves would be about 8.6 million or 37%, and unassigned funds would be about 1.4 million. We're not recommending allocating unassigned funds tonight, and at mid-year, more likely than not, staff will come back with a recommendation as far as allocating a portion or as much a reasonable amount back to our reserves. The recommendation is as follows: accept the financial report for the quarter ended on December 31st, 2024, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions down here? Paul, please, thanks.
Thank you. And as you, what you indicated is mid-year we'll get in much more detail. We're seeing some trends, but we just don't know yet, right? And mid-year, and I assume then when we start doing next year's budget, we'll make assumptions based on what we think's happening at the mid-year.
That's correct. Mid-year, we will have some some estimates about how we're going to end the year, and when we do budget, so after mid-year, we go straight into the priority setting and the budget process, and from there, we'll also have an idea of, okay, how we're going to end the year, and that's going to build on what we think is going to happen next year. In the past, for TOT and sales tax particularly, forecasting those out has always been, can we do at least what we've done in the past? And that might be the recommendation, but yeah, we'll know more at mid-year.
Right. No, thank you. And I think the community needs to know that. That's how our process works. And we base our budget on anticipated revenue, right? And if we see trends, we're going to build that into our budgeting, forecasting, and come up with our budgeting for next fiscal.
Yes, that's correct, yeah.
Vice Mayor Reddick.
So the very last statement on page 85 talks about funding reserves. So right now we're below our policy target. So at what point do we put funds into the reserves? Is this something that happens periodically? Is it like a once-a-year thing when we look at our final balance sheet? You say we're only funded at 32% as opposed to 50%. So how do we fund that reserve? What's the process for funding that reserve? When does that happen?
Historically, that's been a every 6-month process. For the past few years, at the budget cycle, been through the act of the budget and through the act of the mid-year review. Outside of that, it would have to be I will have to double check on the exact language, but it would have to be some kind of action from council. Yeah. Yeah,
As part of some budget action, whether it's a mid-year adjustment or
that's correct.
initially putting it all in there at the beginning of the fiscal year kind of a thing?
Yes.
So we will be looking at that issue with the mid-year report, the first meeting in March, I guess.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you for that.
If there are no more questions, someone like to make a motion to accept the report? I don't think so. I don't think there's any speakers from the public.
No, I don't see it online either.
Right, okay. A motion, anybody?
I make the motion that we accept the financial report for quarter ended on December 31st, 2024.
Second?
All those in favor, oh wait, do we need to? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion passed. Next item is item 3B, Community Services Financial Assistance Program. And we'll receive a staff report on that from Julissa. Thank you.
Is this on? Okay. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, council members, and members of the community. My name is Julissa Acosta. I'm the Community Services Analyst with the City Manager's Office, and I am here to present an update on the current CSFA program and seek recommendation for the subcommittee meetings in the upcoming months. A little bit of context for our new council members. This program started about 7 years ago with a $100,000 investment from the city. There were smaller grants and more nonprofits receiving funding. There was no subcommittee guidance. There was no thought process around who was receiving funds, and decisions were made at this very room by council without any more context other than receiving the applications. Besides that, at the time, the community organizations didn't really work in an integrative approach and weren't working collaboratively, which is one thing that council expressed a desire for over time. And with that, there was limited impact into the results of the funding. And just for a little bit of context, this is just a little table that summarizes or exemplifies what happened in the first year of the program, and then where we are now. So for instance, in 2018, 2019, there was limited collaboration among the nonprofits organizations on the coast. It was more with Bayside organizations. You can see the smaller amounts of funding really provided a limited source for the nonprofits to continue providing service to our community. Over time, and this is just from our last report, last mid-year report for the program, we are seeing that there's more collaboration among the agencies. We are seeing greater impact among the services provider and the clients. And I do want to point out that a lot of these organizations serve clients throughout the coast side. However, in our contracts it's specified that they serve Half Moon Bay residents, and they are very detailed about listing that the funds that they receive from the city are used for Half Moon Bay residents. So what changed over time? Over the last couple years, the city decided to increase that funding amount, resulting in the most recent, which is $300,000. And that funding includes 10% of technical assistance and the inclusion of a cohort model, which is where we bring the leadership staff from the nonprofit organizations to learn from each other. We provide the space so they can, explore a peer learning environment,
share challenges, share successes, best practices, and over time, explore that collaboration that we have greatly worked for. I will say successfully over the last 2 years since we implemented this cohort model, we are seeing more collaboration among the agencies, which is one thing that we were really looking for to instill within our nonprofit organizations. We were hearing from the community that everybody was going at from different approaches, and we wanted to remove that and create a learning environment where everybody could thrive. One thing that was important to highlight is the impetus for that change. This came from the Coastside Recovery Initiative, which came to City Council a couple years ago. And two of the recommendations included in that report, which are the ones that you see on the screen. The first one is to continue to develop a more coordinated and integrated approach among Coastside nonprofits providing safety net services to the community. And the second was to increase and strengthen capacity of the Coastside safety net providers to connect with vulnerable residents. This was a very key element during the pandemic. There was a need, extreme need in the community, and our nonprofits were providing services day in and day out at very different levels. And that was a very challenging situation for everybody. Throughout the years, the Coastside has continued to receive challenges, like the storms, like the shooting, and we were very pleased to share with Council at that time and continue to share that at this moment that we continue to collaborate with them very closely. We are very grateful for the support they provide to the community and the support they provide to the city to allow us to serve our community better. This is just a summary for the current fiscal year, just so everybody understands where the funding went from fiscal year 2024, 2025. This is the funding allocated to each of the organizations and the main services that they provide to the community. I am happy to share that at the mid-year mark, most organizations have at least exceeded, if not surpassed, met and exceeded the 50% mark and continue to provide services to our community. And we have also seen great success and attendance from the cohort model. One thing that I really want to mention is the progress of that cohort collaboration over the last couple of years. We started really not knowing what we were going to work on together, and during the first year we implemented this model, the group of nonprofit leaders at the table shared that one tool that would be very beneficial to them was to create a shared identity as Coastside Collaborative group that works towards shared goals. And so at that time, we hired Lightbox Collaborative, who worked together with each of the nonprofits and together at the several meetings that we hosted to develop a shared message. That shared message resulted in Coast Pride, who was working at the time with us, receiving a $1.7 million allocation for mental health services on the coast for youth. That program is still being developed, and they're securing location. They're continue to advocate for mental health, and so that was a great win for the group. Out of that, we continue to provide opportunities where all agencies can collaborate together. One of the most recent one was about a year and a half, a little over a year ago, when the city applied for Measure K funding to create a healthcare access lab on the coast in partnership with Senior Coastsiders, who was going to host a mobile lab service. Though that application didn't result the way we were hoping, we continued to collaborate with the group and advocated for the urgent care clinic. The group was instrumental in the outreach for the services, and we are seeing great usage of the urgent care clinic in partnership with Dignity Health, and we continue to promote that as well. In the overall purpose of the cohort, we are continuing to see great collaboration. There have been many instances where when we gather quarterly, we hear from the leadership team that they are collaborating and continuing to apply to grants together and to continue to provide services together. One of the last things that I want to mention in the collective impact approach that we're hoping and through the cohort is that last year when we presented this item to City Council, it was recommended from the subcommittee to explore a 2-year funding cycle contingent on funding, unavailable funding. And so the second year would be the upcoming fiscal year, which is 2025-2026. And so today, we're not seeking for any funding. We're just seeking to provide City Council with the mid-year update and direction to staff in the subcommittee meetings for the upcoming months. Well, I understand that the council will be receiving a mid-year budget at the next council meeting. So this is just to direct us as staff as to what to expect for next year. In terms of the subcommittee meeting. And I want to point out, I believe it's Mayor Brownstone and Councilmember Johnson who are part of that subcommittee meeting, subcommittee group. And so that's it at this point. I'll put it over for questions.
Thank you. And I just have some questions. Maybe you've heard all these before, maybe not. But so to be a member of the CSFA, does a nonprofit apply to be a part of it? Because I'm trying to understand, so it looks like maybe 7 years ago we had 15 nonprofits apply. If I count now, it's down to 9, and whatever the cohort, I'm gonna have a question about that. So are these nonprofits that have an application to be in this membership? And what's the requirement to be in CSFA?
Sure. Yes, the answer is yes, they normally apply. And based on council guidance and subcommittee guidance, we open application periods. The council and the subcommittee determine what areas we want to focus on. I will point out that after the pandemic, the focus has been safety net services for the coast. And that includes housing, food security, transportation, mental health, childcare access, and items of that sort. Once the application period is open, we receive all applications, and then subcommittee reviews all applications and determines based on the guidelines and the parameters. So to us, they determine the funding priority for each organizations and the time. For the first year, they were 15 organizations. However, the amounts were smaller, and over time, city staff and the subcommittee understood that there was a higher need for services, and so they were hoping to have more impact, funding larger amounts and fewer organizations.
So then do we verify that all these nonprofits are in good standing with the state, the IRS, they filed their paperwork?
Correct.
Everything is...
Yes, part of it is an application, a very straightforward application period, but they're also required to submit IRS documents and nonprofit status.
So then this cohort, what kind of technical assistance would they provide? Is it auditing or would it?
No, so they determine what type of technical assistance they need from the city. So the first year was the shared identity that I shared earlier. The cohort wanted to receive help in terms of defining shared messages to seek opportunities for funding and to express the services. They received help to identify audiences in terms of are we looking for volunteers? Are we looking for funders? Are we looking for staff or just for folks who align with our mission? And so they receive funding to create that shared message. That shared message has been stored in a location where everybody can access that, and they have used that the wording that came out of that messaging to apply for grants. Part of that was the $1.7 million that was awarded to Coast Pride for the Alcove modal on the coast. And so every year we get together based on the current needs of the organizations and the current needs of the community. We take a deep dive into assessing and then determine what is the best course of action And so last year, we received assistance from the Si Se Puede Collaborative from San Jose, who is a similar model comprised of 5 different nonprofits with a sort of mother entity overseeing everything and determining whether it's all 5 organizations that apply for one specific funding bucket or just 2, or if it's better that just one of them receives or seeks that funding.
Right. So my follow-up then is, because Coastside Gives is a wonderful group on the coast, and when is theirs, in May?
In May, yes, May 1st.
So
Yeah.
do we look at what, say, these 9 nonprofits, somebody else wants to be a part of this, we look at how much money they've been able to secure on their own, and the city then kind of looks at, how to recommend what amount then to?
As far as fundraising from Coastside Gives, it's usually, the timing is a little different. Coastside Gives ends in May, and usually by that time, we have already met with subcommittee, and subcommittee determines the funding allocations. Was that your?
Yeah, I'm trying to decide, how do we say, all right, I'm not saying this is what happens, but just say one group, oh, they've got 100,000 this year. Well, maybe we shouldn't be giving them 20,000. Maybe the city should only be doing maybe 10, or maybe they don't even need something this year because they've been very successful in other avenues. I don't know that. Maybe that's something the subcommittee looks at?
That is something the subcommittee looks at, and we present, again, if they were a prior participant, we present data on the previous years, and then if they're a current applicant, the subcommittee reviews and determines funding, and sometimes chooses, depending on the need, also, because every agency provides a different type of service, and so depending on the need, they choose to, where to allocate more resources.
And just one last follow-up here is, I know this is part of the budget process, and sometimes I wonder, and we know we are going to deal with a structural deficit, and that's kind of a moving target. We know for sure 25, 26, but not sure how Measure R and everything comes together. If, and this is something maybe council, we can talk about it, but whether we're better off not committing to funds at the beginning of the budget year. Maybe it's something we look at mid-year. I don't know how the nonprofits, how they operate, or if they're a fiscal year or calendar year, or if they're similar to our type of budget.
Yeah, they are very similar to our type of budget, and it's usually the way grants are, granted, for that matter. And it's what we've been doing in the past because we wanted to support our nonprofits ahead of the upcoming year to make sure that both parties knew that their funding was committed to the programs and services.
Right. And I just don't know, I mean, we'll talk about it in the coming months, the city's budget.
Right.
But I want to make sure, we're very clear and upfront, what, I don't want to give false expectations.
Yeah, 100%. One thing is, usually the recommendation and the decision is made towards the end of the fiscal year. So we start presenting normally around this time to council, just an update and seek direction for next year in terms of where should we allocate resources if, they're available. Do we open an application period? If so, what does it look like for the nonprofits? Then the subcommittee sits and reviews all the applications and then makes a recommendation based on the available funding.
And then just that 2-year program that you mentioned, has that been initiated, or we're looking to start that?
This would be the second year. So last year when we met with the subcommittee, they recommended we continue with the same group of nonprofits that were funded in fiscal year 22-23, 23-24, sorry. And so they recommended that fiscal year 24-25 was the first year of that process, ending in fiscal year 25-26. So fiscal year 25-26 will be the second year of that two-year recommendation.
For those 9?
For those 9 entities.
9 only? Nobody else can get in this year?
No, because we only have a limited amount of funds. And that, I also want to point out, that is, one, we wanted to really emphasize the focus on collaboration among the nonprofits, which we are seeing great results. and also to remove a little bit of the admin challenges that, both city staff and the nonprofit staff have to face every year with resubmitting an application, administratively speaking.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it. Thanks.
Thank you.
Wanted to answer one of the questions you asked about if a particular organization seems particularly well-funded, do we take? And actually there was one organization and they got a really generous grant from a national organization. And so, yeah, we decided there were those who didn't have a huge grant like that. But yeah, we took that into consideration. But that's the kind of information that's provided, looking at their funding and yeah, we might take a look and make sure like that there's a even, because these are grants, do you know what I mean? It's not like you use the word membership a few times. That's in the cohort, but these are grants and people have to show that, the money went to what they were proposing for. And we'll have our audits and make sure that, it's an even playing field in terms of what we're requiring from people. And we give feedback when it doesn't look great. So, so that's how we've been running it so far. But I did want to say there was a really solid example of exactly that.
Mayor Brown, sir, if I could add, just the fact that we convene the cohort at least once quarterly allows for this interaction and this kind of check-ins with organizations, make sure that they're, getting the support they need, that they're meeting their deliverables. But it also provides a good check-in point for the city as to where services are needed and where resources are allocated.
Thank you.
I thought it was interesting just to read the challenges and obstacles and all the details and the stories. I think they're really good to see what's going on. And then a couple of them that I noticed was staffing was an issue. And then, so I'm thinking, are we able to provide, because they don't have staffing, are we up to par on that? Are they up to par? Because here we are, we're supporting them, but if they don't have the staff to do the work, then we're not getting the outcome.
Right. I think that is a very specific question to each of the organizations. I think they find a lot of support from the city. We're not able to provide the staffing for them. However, we partner with them in terms of outreaching. For example, sometimes we provide spaces to nonprofits to continue their programming, or we encourage partnerships. Oftentimes what we've seen, and this is why we kind of piggyback on the successes of the Si Se Puede Collaborative, sometimes they share staff. And so we are, putting all the options out on the table for them so they can explore what that looks like for each of their needs. And while we're not necessarily staffing each of, their organizations or recruiting for them, we oftentimes support through other venues like, hosting or sharing the information at the Opportunity Center with our key partners over there. And so.
And like, for instance, Abundant Grace is having issues with housing vouchers, difficult to access, there are many hurdles. Or is that something we can do on our end to help them, or is that something they have to do on their own?
That is mostly something they have to do on their own because the housing vouchers come from the county. However, sometimes, again, that networking and that collaboration, oftentimes the discussions happen at the cohort meetings when they share these challenges. Another colleague or another peer shares a contact that they might have at the county or somebody that they work directly with and has, provided successful results.
And then if we have like Coastside Hope's having issues with finding certain foods, and then there's another one, Abundant Grace might have certain foods that they have, do they work together as a team?
They do. Oftentimes they do, and they seek each other and say, actually, this is just anecdotally, I don't think it's included in there, but over the Thanksgiving holiday, Coastside Hope ended up having an excess of turkeys, and they reached out to different organizations that were also apart from the cohort to share that. And it works either way, whether you have excess or you're short of. That's how they collaborate, yes.
And what about on Coastside Hope, there was a gentleman that's having a car problem, and I think I fielded a call one time, and I was I was willing to come on over and help them out. But there are other shops too, I mean, in my world. So if that's something you can talk to them about, if there's a car issue, to get somebody up and running, and they was talking about doing Ubering and getting back on their feet. I definitely would want to be involved with that if I could. And I have other shops that I know that would definitely do that.
That's fantastic.
So I want to put that in there. When I read that, I was like, this is something I could help.
Right, and that's fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Johnson, for that offer of assistance. Appreciate that.
Reading through the summaries, I thought it was great that most of the cohort supplied metrics, clients served, that sort of thing. Some of them didn't, but I think originally when we were talking about forming the cohort, the vision was that they would share, best practices for, writing grants, tracking, spending, making financial reports and things like that. And I think that's remains a very key, important part of the cohort's work. In addition to sharing information, is learning the nuts and bolts from each other, or maybe bringing in a speaker. There's nonprofit foundations who only work on building capacity for nonprofits. So helping them learn. But I think one of the things that's important is demonstrating metrics, because we consider this a grant program. If you're just, giving money and not expecting any monitoring or reporting or accountability, it becomes a gift, and then it becomes a gift of public funds. So I think, having accountability measures and having agreement between the city and its applicants and grant recipients that, certain things are expected. We don't want to tie them up. As it is, they're short-staffed, they have a lot on their plate, some of them do work all day, some at night. But I think if everybody could agree on, certain metrics to provide in their mid-year report, certain expenditures to track, and making that available to the city is good. And I'm totally in favor of the cohort working on issues that help, the members of the cohort, because we can always learn and get better at fundraising, building independence, finding out, what the staffing issues are. I think the cohort is just a fabulous idea. So I just want to make sure that we're also doing that accountability piece to make sure that it's not a gift, it's a grant. And when I say grant, that means it's a partnership. We're giving you money because we care, but, we have to also be careful of taxpayer expectations, that sort of thing. So it's a partnership. And I think we've done a pretty good job about that, and I think we can always do, a little better. But I laud city staff for making this function work,
We do establish a contract once council directs staff to continue or, to proceed with funding. We do establish a contract where we set deliverables for each organization. They help us put it together. And we have a contract. And they also, at the mid-year report, they're required to submit what you see on the attachment, but they're also required to submit an expenditure report. And we have that available. Yeah.
And so that's good information for our subcommittee, to know that that's there. And when they're working with staff and developing the program for the following year, bringing that up, educating us as to, what's going on behind the scenes.
Yes.
That communication piece is really good. So I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I wanted to second what Vice Mayor Ruddock is talking about, because there's some organizations that might be getting some straight-out gifts with no strings attached, and there's not financial accountability. And but what we're giving out are grants, so you have our full support in messaging that back if there's a couple of folks who are a little late on their reports or don't give you the detail, that we will look much more favorably on repeat applications, on those that do provide that information. And it's really just standard, good, best practices for anyone receiving grants, because that's what people look for. The grantor looks for, is this a successful, sustainable program? And And most likely, they have all the information. They're just, it's like no one jumps on filling out taxes always, so it's one of those things. I get it. But it's to their benefit, and that's where hopefully you and the cohort can help if somebody
Yes, absolutely.
needs a little more assistance. So appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you.
I totally agree, because I'd like to see the details of everything going. I really enjoyed reading all that, but some of them and I don't want to pick out the one, but I was like, okay, I kind of want to see a little bit more on that one and in details of what's happening, and so I agree with that.
Okay, thank you.
Would that be like benchmarks? Is that what you're talking about? The benchmarks are established and we have each group meet those?
No, they state what they're going to use the money for. That's
Correct.
part of the application. So we want to just be assured that that's how the money was spent, and they're allowed to add any impacts, of course, tell your story about what it meant to go commit to that.
Usually when they submit an application, they submit it for a specific program or service. When we enter into an agreement with them, they are required to list the deliverables, what they hope to accomplish, how many clients they hope to serve, how many pounds of food they're hoping to distribute, or how many dollars they can distribute in rental assistance, for example. And we are required for them to submit an expenditure report or a budget beforehand, which is what we compare against with at the mid-year and at the final, at the end of the grant period. And just to point out also what Councilmember Ruddock said, we're not trying to add another burden to their already, staff, exhausted staff, but we try to make our process very simple yet informative.
Great. Well, thank you, Jaleesa. I'm now going to open up for public comment, so we'll go back to a couple of folks who have been patient. Thank you. So our first speaker would be Caitlin Freeberg.
All right, okay. Good evening, Mayor, council members, and city staff, and community members that are still here. My name is Caitlin Freeberg. I serve as the programs director at Coastside Hope, a provider of essential safety net services and beneficiary of the CSFA funding program. Coastside Hope is dedicated to advancing social equity by addressing critical issues such as food insecurity, housing instability, homelessness prevention, and connecting our community with vital resources, including unemployment benefits, disability services, Social Security, immigration assistance, and legal advocacy for vulnerable residents of the coastside. Thanks to your guys' support and the city's support last year, we were able to serve 3,352 people in 1,427 households with food and provided safety net services to 4,661 people in 1,966 households. Of those, 70% are residents of Half Moon Bay. The support received from CSFA funding goes beyond financial assistance. It's helped us strengthen our relationships with other incredible organizations involved in this impactful program, and it has allowed us to secure additional funding from philanthropic sources. This collaboration with CSFA partners continues to make us stronger, and each year we find new ways to expand the positive impact we have on Half Moon Bay residents. Each year, Coastside Hope also offers free tax preparation programs for Coastside residents. Last year, we assisted 186 individuals with an average income of $36,000 per tax return. We're deeply grateful for the support of CSFA funding provides, and we urge you to continue ensuring that the programs like this remain part of the city's budget. We need your ongoing support to continue to build a strong community where we all prosper together. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Caitlin. Next speaker, Spandan Chakrabarti. Am I pronouncing your first name correctly?
Sure.
Okay.
Standard.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. My name is Spandon Chakrabarty, and I am the Director of Development for Sunrises Dental Health, which is an organization that was founded in 2001 in Half Moon Bay by a bunch of crazy people who believed that everybody, regardless of their ability to pay or a physical or a developmental challenge, deserved to be able to get high quality and culturally appropriate dental care, which you probably know how important that is if you have ever chewed food or smiled. So we fundraise because most of the folks that we serve are low income, and in our clinic we serve about 1,000. In our Half Moon Bay clinic, we serve about 1,000 people every year, and the vast majority of them are low income. And what that means is public dental insurance does not quite cover what it costs to provide service that is quality. And what this specific program allows us to do, beyond just providing some of those folks with the services that they need, is leverage it, because if the city that we were born in believes in us, then it is easier to make the case to other potential funding partners that they should too. And as Caitlin just said, the collaboration also helps us work together. We've done 2 grant applications in collaboration with other groups. So we actually cherish this opportunity to be part of this. And I want to give kudos to Julissa for being an excellent leader for our cohort. And that is all that I wanted to say. And I hope that you will continue this investment, because it is an investment. Thank you.
Thank you, Spandon. Next item on agenda is our budget amendment for the Poplar Street Traffic Calming and Safety Project, and we have another staff report.
Good evening, Council, members of the public. I'm happy to be here. Maz Bazarginia, Public Works. I'm here with Jonathan Wu, our Assistant Engineer tonight, and we're here to present the item on the budget amendment for the Poplar Street Traffic Calming and Safety Project. Here's our overview. We'll go a little bit of background. We have some photos to show of before and after construction, some of the changes, and then we'll conclude on the item tonight. So the recommendation tonight is for a transfer of $50,000 from our Streets and Roads funds to our capital project for Poplar Street, and then authorizing $350,000 in additional contingencies for the project, just over $2 million. Just a little bit of brief background. Back in 2017, the city received $1.2 million in grant funding from the One Barrier Grant 2 program, OBAG 2 program, that's administered through the Metropolitan Transportation Commission. Then following that, a few years of design and a little bit of delay in the design process with the COVID. In the middle of that process, we wrapped up our project and got the Planning Commission approval of the coastal development permit in February of 2022. We had we actually started construction and awarded the construction in September of 2023, but there was a discussion at the Planning Commission in October of 2023 to discuss the amendment of the project component of the gravel parking. But unfortunately, that did not move forward as presented. And then construction was ultimately started after the rainy season in early 2024. I'll turn this over to Jonathan to go through a little bit more of the project specifics.
Thank you, Maz. So here on your screen, you could see some pre-project pictures. You can see there's no sidewalks, no curb and gutters, no crosswalks, no decomposed granite, I'm going to say DG in place of that, DG pathway, deteriorated pavement, a lack of street trees. So there was not a whole lot going on at Poplar pre-project. So here are some new pictures, or here are some pictures to date right now, and you can see there's new ADA compliant sidewalks, new DG pathway, new stormwater treatment, also known as bioretention areas, new striping improvements, new curb ramps, and on the bottom left of your screen, you can see that although it's pretty chopped up right now, you can see we retain the existing street trees that are existing. And that was really advocated by the community planning commission and the council members at the time to retain those. And what we've done is kind of reconfigure the curb along that section over there to accommodate those street trees. So there are some unforeseen conditions that we've experienced during construction of this project. For instance, the PG&E gas main location, which we found in the field varying location as well as depth within the area. So we had to make a few adjustments with respect to that. We retained the existing 6 street trees, as I mentioned prior. There's unsuitable street base section, which I'll discuss later on, as well as additional striping and improvements within the project area and near the project area as well too. And then the street section adjacent to Highway 1. And there's 2 bullet points that are bolded. Those are more of a bigger quote unquote ticket item, so we wanted to dive into that a little bit more. So the first item that we wanted to talk about was what's called FDR, or full depth reclamation. And what that is utilizing the existing material that's out there, the pavement, the base material, and we grind it, pulverize it, add cement to it, recompact it, and it becomes a more stronger and more suitable base. Unfortunately, as the initial design, what was determined was that we would mill and fill or remove and replace the existing asphalt while putting pavement fabric on it. So the field conditions, as we kind of looked into it a little bit more in the project during construction as we broke ground, we determined some locations needed more treatment than what we anticipated and what we had. And we found out that the base was actually unsuitable at a lot of locations. Over time, we ended up requesting a change order from the contractors that summed up to be about $170,000. However, we did get a credit of $52,000 in place of not doing that mill and fill or replace and remove and replace. FDR, or full depth reclamation, is a more cost and more time efficient or effective, as opposed to replacing, removing the existing base section as well, and replacing that back with new base rock. The next area that we wanted to discuss was the location adjacent to Highway 1. Here are some pictures of the Highway 1 section that we have today, and you can kind of see where it stopped with the new pavement and the existing pavement that's out there right now. And why we've kind of stopped at that area was because of the traffic loops within that location, which was not part of the original bid. So we requested another change order from the contractors, and they totaled it to be about $89,000. But this includes new pavement, new base, as well as the replacement of the traffic loops. In the staff report, it was mentioned that this potential option or this location to be omitted and not move forward with the change order, although the pavement condition would be not as great until Caltrans proceeds with their shop project, as I'm sure you guys are aware of. With this action, this would not require the need to transfer the $50,000 requested in the recommendation earlier. However, it would still, regardless, ask for the $350,000 request for additional contingency funding.
Yeah, just a little bit of extra clarification. So that section was omitted because it was part of the shop project scope for Caltrans when they do their larger infrastructure improvements and pavement restoration project. However, the timing of that is still to be determined. They're anticipating to start in summertime, but we haven't gotten that confirmed date of start yet. And basically what that would do is leave this location in this existing condition until they come through to do that work. So that was the rationale for the request if the council decides to move forward on that particular piece. So in conclusion, I've put the recommendation here. If we were to move forward with the additional repairs and the loop work, as you get to the Highway 1 intersection, it would require a $50,000 fund transfer from our streets and roads funds to the capital improvement project for Poplar, which is CIP number 0593. And then we're requesting a authorization of $350,000 of additional contingency to complete this project. We have another slide if it's desired to omit that piece. The recommendation is slightly different. Thank you.
Man. Oh, he wants to go ahead.
Moz, thank you for that. I'm trying to grasp the whole big picture. You're talking about that last piece where it goes from new to the pre-existing what was there before.
Correct.
And you're saying that Caltrans at some point is going to take that on when we do the expansion. Is that correct?
When Caltrans comes through for that shop project, they will. This part of the area is within their scope of work.
And you don't know when that's going to happen?
That's correct.
Thank you.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I guess just to continue on with the Caltrans project. So if the city did do something, would Caltrans tear it up?
If the city were to do it, the Caltrans would likely leave the space with the loops alone. They will, that's something that we would coordinate with them closely. I don't foresee them tearing it up because they're just doing a pavement restoration project.
Right. But they'll try to join where their new is versus where we stop. So to me, it gets kind of goofy. You have these join lines
a little bit
out there. And then are the loops functioning now?
They are functional, yes. There is some conform issues and with the private driveways, with the private residences to the north.
When you say conform, is it a drainage issue or just it's an uneven pavement? Or
drainage, and there's some potential drainage concerns as well as some access grade issues. And the reason why the loops would have to be reworked is because the detection box is in that same area. So if we were to go and fix the conform issues for drainage and accessibility, it would require us to mitigate the loops.
So, I drive through there now. I think something needs to be done down there. I don't think we can leave it for another, who knows how long, Caltrans when they start marching down, because aren't they starting El Granada and working their way south?
I've heard different starting points and dates, but yeah, there's been lots of conversations about where they're starting.
Clear as mud, Caltrans is. Okay. So then, I don't think we can leave the condition down there. Is there some minimal work we can do for the conforms and then have Caltrans, because right, Caltrans will go up to their right of way. Is that where they'll pave? So for the community to understand, Highway 1, yes, but then their right-of-way extends into our streets that connect to it.
Correct.
So they will go down and do these these grinds to match our existing. And if you look on the west side, it's about the length of that area you see where the trail is. You can see where the fences and so they would go down and grind down to where that match line is. So they would do the same on the east side, come up to wherever their right-of-way line is. So then you would have a nice clean match there.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's what we're going to want for the pavement to last out there. But I don't, this is tricky because I don't want to leave what's, essentially they're downstream of this project. The last houses on the corner there that you mentioned need some work. So, I would, if there's a way to try and do minimum work, not pave the whole street, but because I let Caltrans come back and let them put the new loops in if that's necessary after they pave. I don't know if they will do that.
We can certainly discuss with our contractor options to address the current concerns as far as the conforms and drainage. We can certainly do that and see if we can. The big piece of the 89,000 is dealing with the loop detection and the traffic control related to that. So maybe we can take a closer look at that to see if we can do something that will improve it better for the community, for our folks, and then yes, leave a majority of it for Caltrans to do.
And especially if it's still functioning.
Sure.
If the loops are still active in there, because then I was trying to understand. You said 50,000 and 350,000, but it's not 400,000.
No, so the contingency, so the project originally came in a little bit lower in bids than what we had originally anticipated. So there is still about 290,000, something of that nature. There's still about $300,000 remaining in our CIP program fund. It's just not allocated the contract in the contingency. So once we close the project out, that funding would have gone back to the Fund 123, our streets and roadways funds. So essentially, if we are to move forward, we can allocate $300,000. That's still within the CIP budget for Poplar Street. Wouldn't require any additional transfers, and it still gives us a little bit of money to do some smaller scope fixes as far as the concerned areas. So that's where it is. So like the 50,000 would only be if we're going for if we wanted to add this full scope of the 89,000. We can allocate up to 300,000 without any additional transfers from any funds.
Right. So maybe, again, if there's something we can not have to do, I would, because not only, for Caltrans, but it's a much cleaner look and it performs better. Because otherwise, how pavement will ravel when they're trying to meet various join lines. Join lines with different contractors are doing different work. So to me, but again, if we can not leave the condition at, whether you're talking about the conforms with driveways and drainage, I just hate to.
We can certainly, I totally understand. We can certainly look at doing something more on the temporary side. It wouldn't resolve all the issues, but at least get us through the next few months until Caltrans.
And then Caltrans would take care of it with the permanent fix.
Right.
And then, and I don't know if we want to talk about it, but the condition of the roadway. Are we going to come back for another budget amendment for the planter boxes, perhaps, or even the gravel that's in the road?
Yes, so there's been some concerns about the elevation differences with the curb alignment and the bioretention areas. We can certainly take a closer look at that. We don't have, there's some ideas, but we don't have any numbers behind them quite yet. We can certainly come back with that information, and as well as looking at the gravel areas. Obviously, that would be something that would require a modification to the CDP. We can certainly talk about that and explore those alternatives and options with legal counsel as well to see what that would require. But we're happy to do that, and we can come back to council with that information as a separate item.
Because I don't know if the same contractor then would do the work, or would you close this out? And just because I've had, during my campaign, District 3 includes Poplar west of Highway 1. And there were a lot of concerns on that roadway, what was going to be put on their section of the road. And they were looking what was east of 1, because at some point there was a grant that said it was going to go all the way down the railroad.
Correct.
And that kind of scared some folks on Poplar. I don't think scared so much as, we want safe streets, and people need to understand this is a complete street, which means peds, bicycles, and cars. In this case, and you have buses and there's stormwater, and we're trying to save the water. We don't want to just dump it everywhere, trying to recharge ground. All good intentions. These are things we're trying to meet. You have a lot of conflicting priorities when you do something like this. So, I had told folks that I would see what, was currently planned for Poplar. I'm not saying I don't know what the current plan is, and I said we're still dealing with east of Highway 1. But if this is a blueprint for how we're going to do complete streets, we might want to rethink, that almost each neighborhood has unique characteristics, and that might require, instead of one size fits all approach to complete streets, maybe unique characteristics. We could come up with some ideas for our complete street that still has, you're not having people walk in the roadways, you have separate pathways, drainage is addressed, because drainage, runs havoc with everybody, whether it's going on their properties or even people trying to walk in it. The slowing of traffic, that Poplar gets a lot of traffic, and it's concern of folks. So I just didn't know if that's a discussion later on, or how much we were going to talk about it tonight, since we're talking about money, since, I didn't know.
No, that's fair. I mean, I think there's, it's difficult to discuss because obviously we don't have the numbers of what the fix would be. We can certainly go back and take a closer look and see different options and alternatives that we can implement to address both the parking areas as well as the bioretention conform with the parking areas. I would suggest we do that we can have the discussion about what we want to look at, but we won't have any numbers tonight. So I'm happy to have that conversation here and then come back with something that has more information. I think for the purposes of the contractor, it probably makes the most sense to close this project out and then come back and get bids for additional improvements as we determine. I think that makes the most sense, but we can certainly entertain either option.
So then this would get us through project closure.
This change order would get us through project closure and probably a little extra left over. And then we can come back and reassess what we want to do with the parking stalls next to the bioretention as well as the shoulders themselves.
That was one of my concerns, and I know this is not what we're talking about, but just getting out as a passenger, jumping right into a planter box 6 to 8 inches down, trip and fall, litigation is not what I want to see. I think it works. It looks beautiful. The pictures look beautiful. What's been done is beautiful. But like if you were to get out and I was going to unload my child in the wheelchair, I wouldn't even be able to get access to my child. So we have to think a little bit of those kinds of things. I'm not saying stop the whole world. I'm just saying I'm thinking a workshop, citizens review on that so that we don't continue on and do mistakes down the road, make sure that we are doing the right thing and get all the inputs from everybody. And I'm not saying spend a bunch of money or anything, but I'm just saying tweak it a little bit, make it better and better and better. It's almost there, Maz. You guys did a great job. The gravel, I get why you did it in the road, but it just seems odd to me. It's the first one we've seen. It's for stormwater drainage, and that's what we came up with. So I don't have an issue with that. It's just it's a different approach that I haven't been seen, and we haven't seen it downtown yet. And this is the first one. It's a test pilot.
So I would have a question. To close out the existing contract and then bid other improvements. I mean, don't we have a benefit now working under the existing contract to preserve dollars? wouldn't it be more expensive to go to bid? I mean, prices have been going up, inflation's, firing up again. It seems to me that, we might risk getting into an excessive cost situation if we close this out and then find out we want to rebid later. And it just seems to me we probably want to work under the existing contract and contingency. And it's likely, isn't it, that the same contractor would bid again?
Very
because
likely.
he's local and
Very likely, yes.
yeah.
No, we can certainly talk to our existing contractor and get some prices and on some of the options.
Yeah.
We would have to come up with those options and alternatives, but we can certainly do that, and then in the short term to see what that looks like.
Yeah, I think maybe trying to work with the I do think that right near Highway 1, though, it is a mess. It needs to be dealt with. I would hate for this Caltrans project to start up way up north and then, money's pulled back and they, put off some of the components of the project to future years. And, we might have to end up revisiting it depending on their schedule. I just know with the state budget, money can get pulled back. And I think we have to keep that in mind, too. It's kind of a, difficult territory, state funding, so.
So Councilmember Rodriguez, are you saying then, are you suggesting that to do it right, get it done, complete it? Is that correct?
I'm just sort of speculating on what could happen, having worked with the state and seen money appropriated, then money pulled back, when times get tough, like it did, after 2008. So, but, ideally, we want Caltrans to take care of it, because I'd be worried that their standards change or something, and they come to us and say, well, we got to rip this up anyway because it doesn't meet our current shop standards or whatever it is. So probably deferring in what Councilmember Nagangas is recommending, looking at temporary fixes, is probably the best strategy. I'm just throwing it out there that things change and,
Right, and if we needed to, let's say Caltrans said, we're only going to Kelly now. If we had to come back, that's something that we could do if we had to later. I mean, to a permanent condition,
Yeah.
if necessary.
Yeah, we could.
Yeah, so that's something if Caltrans decided they couldn't.
I just don't want to rely on what Caltrans says they can or cannot do at one time, period. We've already been there. Big changes, so, and there's only so much money we could be spending right now. Always got to be thinking about things that could happen that we haven't planned for, so. So, I'm ready to entertain a motion if there's no more comments.
so actually, since we're not
So if we want to move away from the additional change order for the end of Poplar, it would be the modified alternative, which is here presented to you here. It's adopting a resolution authorizing $261,000 of additional contingency from the Poplar Street Capital Project, CIP number 5393, to the contingency for a new total construction budget of 1.752.
And that includes any temporary work or any just some temporary improvements down there to keep us up and running, working, functioning signals, drainage until Caltrans comes through and does their permanent project.
I think, given that we're talking about looking at some other alternatives in some of the other areas, maybe the best option is to move forward with the original recommendation of the budget, and then we can take a closer look at some of the specific things we want to do over there, and maybe hone back the $89,000 change order, make that modification, and maybe we can use some of that funding to address some of the other needs. And we'll come back to council before we expend that with some options before we even move forward with that change order. We can do it that way. Does that make sense?
Right, so you're wanting, so we would still approve the 50,000 and then the 350 in the contingency, but not do the $89,000 fix. But that funds would finish the project, put that intersection in a safe operating condition till Caltrans comes back, does the permanent improvements, and it leaves perhaps some additional funds to look at some fine tuning of this project that we've been discussing about that.
Right.
With a contractor perhaps still on board.
Yeah, exactly. So we would do some confor work and work without touching the loop system itself. And then we can utilize whatever is remaining and look at some of the other pieces as you requested, as the council requested. And we're happy to come back to council with an update before we move forward on any of those other tweaks.
Right, I think, yeah, that would be, because you mentioned CDP.
Yeah, so especially if we're touching the gravel area, so that's a modification to that's an amendment to the CDP. So we'll come back with some more information on that,
Yeah,
and before we move forward on that.
Okay.
So what can we do tonight?
If you want to move forward with the recommendation as presented, we will. That allows us to finish up some of the work that we've talked about, and we'll come back to council before we close this project out with a little bit more information on some of the tweaks.
Right. Talk about the 89,000 piece and everything else. Okay. So what we really have to do is read out what we have here in front of us right now. Okay. I love when things work out. I'll make the motion. I move that we adopt a resolution authorizing the Administrative Services Director to transfer $50,000 from Fund 123 Streets and Roads to Capital Improvements, project number 0593, the Poplar Street Traffic Calming and Safety Project, Phase 1, and authorizing $350,000 additional contingency for a new total construction budget of $2,013,000.
Second.
Can I have a roll call?
Councilmember Nagengast,
Yes.
Councilmember Johnson,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Reddick,
Yes.
and Mayor Brownstone.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Thanks. Great. Thank you, Mark and Maz. Really appreciate that. Going through that, all that. Any commission committee updates?
I don't think so.
Any agenda items for future discussion? Any city council reports?
I have one.
Yep. Vice Mayor Reddick.
I've been elected chair of One Shoreline, the county's sea level rise district.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for serving. Well, with that, this meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody. All right.
Oh, I think it's amazing. Well done.